Good afternoon, Facebook family. My name is Daphenie Joseph, and thank you for joining us here for Live Healthy's Miami Garden weekly Facebook Live series. So we're doing things a little bit different today. I have with me scientist and former council member, Mr. David Williams Jr., and we're here behind the Senior Center built in Miami Gardens at David Williams Jr. Botanical Garden. So we're going to give you guys a little tour of the garden and talk about the fruits here, the nutritious fruits, vegetables, and all the effort that Mr. David Williams Jr. has put into the garden. But I want to start with a little introduction and talk about your background, Mr. Williams. Could you tell the audience about a little bit about yourself and what led you to science and everything that you have put into this garden here?
Well, good afternoon, Facebook people. David Williams Jr. is my name, as you know now. I am a scientist. I spent the majority of my career, 33 years, in the pharmaceutical company, working for 2 international pharmaceutical companies. And one of the things that we did, our biggest thing that we did, is we made different types of medicines. And as a scientist and realizing all the ills that occur in communities of color and food deserts, I decided, why don't we bring in fruit that our people can utilize and uplift themselves and prolong their life, as opposed to going to a drugstore and buying a pill. This garden is unique. It's not like a normal garden that you would say where we have greens and tomatoes and those types of things. In the garden that you're about to see, we've imported exotic fruit from around the world. In each tree that produces fruit has a life-saving property. All the vitamins and all the minerals and all the calciums and all those things that you need to help prolong life, you can get through fruit, and you can enjoy yourself. So rather than taking a pill, you can eat a star fruit. Rather than taking a pill, you can eat jackfruit. So those are the type of things that we built into this garden. Okay?
So I do want to ask you, when did you start working on this garden? Because I know you did majority of the work by yourself. So when did you begin?
About 8 years ago, I started out with plants maybe 2 to 3 feet high in this site. And as I spoke with a lot of the farmers and the growers down south that grow things and do things, stated that it would never work up here. This was once a cow pasture. The Enrico family farm was here for many years, a dairy farm. So what I decided to do as a scientist, mix up my own formula of soil. So we excavated all the existing soil around the plants, made up a compost and a composition of soil, and we planted each of the trees you see in the garden in that compost and in that site. And now you see from a distance how the trees have exhausted or exceeded all the expectations of what we expected to happen.
Awesome. So without further ado, let's get into the garden.
Okay. So as tree we see is the moringa tree. And you know, this tree is a famous tree because it helps prolong life, and every part of this tree is edible. If you look here, you'll be able to see these flowers eaten. We also have these pods. If I can grab one here.
And this is
The green pods here. And some of the pods you can open them and cook them for beans. These leaves, if you look at a great healthy salad, you make these green leaves with a little oil and vinegar, and it's just delicious. Google these things up because a lot of the recipes you can find. Okay? And you know, scientists really started looking many years ago at the moringa with an African tribe, and they were looking at why this group of people lived well beyond 100 years. And what they found, a big part of their diet, over 50% of their diet, was moringa. Every part of the tree is edible. And it's just an amazing superfood that you can live and survive off of. Okay?
And can we see inside of the moringa? I remember you were saying something about that.
I'm going to, so this is a green one.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to boil this and have green beans and all of that stuff and all that nutritious stuff that you would have, you would eat it green.
Okay.
Once it dries, it looks like this.
Oh, okay.
And inside of it, it has these pods. And if you put pods, the brown pods, and actually cracked it open, there's a white seed in there. And if you ate this white seed here, which would be somewhat bitter, and drink a glass of water, the glass of water would taste like syrup. Just that fact, it works on the receptor cells in your mouth. And it alters that process to make plain water taste sweet. That's one of the other benefits of moringa. We also have, next to the moringa tree, which was a big hype and a big crave about 15, 20 years ago, is the noni. So this is the noni fruit. It starts out as a little small fruit and it turns green, okay? And as it gets bigger, once it turns to another color, which is this white color, it's ready to eat. Very nutritious. The chart between noni and moringa, the nutritional benefits is just off the chart. You know, nutritious benefits, all in one fruit. And there's a variety here in the garden. So if you don't like one thing, there's an alternative. If you don't like sour, then there's sweet. And we can make things sweet. And you know, with noni, it is so bitter, it's an ideal candidate to maybe juice it, blend it with other sweet things that you like, and infuse it. But some of the people that are into noni, just eat it. Just eat it. Yep. Like blue cheese. And you know how strong and pungent blue cheese is. Okay? So that's a tree. And we come over to the tree next to it, which is another one of the wonders. This is called a cinnamon thyme. And of course, if you look at the green leaves here, this would be equivalent to green tea. Okay, the antioxidants in this leaf is just unbelievable. The benefits, the vitamin A's, the vitamin C's, even calcium is in it. But it smells like, here you go, cinnamon and thyme combination.
Oh yeah, it smells really
Right.
good.
So the difference between green tea is this leaf and regular tea is a brown leaf. And of course, you know, once you dry out a leaf, it becomes more potent. Okay? And you would treat just like you would treat any kind of tea that you were making. You know, put it in water, drink it every morning, and get all of those nutrients. You don't want to let it boil, you just want to let it simmer so the nutrients don't evaporate with the steam. You just want to keep it in there and let it flow. So another wonder that we have in the garden.
I do want to ask you a question because I know sometimes some gardeners may cover their soil with either wood chips or mulch, and I noticed that majority of these aren't covered. So is that because the trees are a little bit more older, or?
Well, it depends on your preference, and it depends on, you know, what kind of mulch and what kind of chips that you're using. Some mulch and stuff can be toxic to plants. We try to keep this garden is as organic as possible and chemical free, and we don't risk those types of things occurring in the garden. And in some instances, it's not a bad thing, but for this garden, we sort of stay away from those things. It's just natural soil that we put together, and that's what we utilize, and we've gotten the best benefit from that at this particular point.
Okay.
But some ground cover is good if you need to retain moisture, but you know, we don't have that issue here with retaining moisture. The plants are watered through a system, some daily, some 3 times a week, you know, to keep things going. We also have here another tree. It's called guava, but it's an unusual guava tree. Okay, it's called a strawberry guava. So if you go in the store and buy at strawberry guava juice, a lot of times the strawberries and guavas mixed and blended together. This is actually a strawberry guava. You cut it open, it's red inside, and it tastes just like guava and strawberry mix. Yes, 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 it is delicious. And this garden is not usual. Everything in here is unusual, and we did that for a purpose. You already know about oranges, you know about grapes, those types of things. You know about grapefruits, but you don't know about strawberry guava. You don't know about jackfruit. You don't know about Ebola. So not only is this a health benefit to people and it prolongs life, it's also a teaching center where you can teach you different things about fruits and how to cook and how to do those things to help prolong lives and to get you off all those over-the-counter medicines and all of those types of things. As we walk in this direction, you'll see here one of our many, and I'll step over here, peach trees. So this is a special peach tree. You can see right here, there's a peach bud that's about to start. So it starts out as a pretty, pretty little pink flower. And then as it's pollinated by insects and bees and those types of things, a peach starts to develop. It's a little early now, but this is one of the hybrid peach trees developed by the University of Florida. It's called the UF Sun. And what makes this peach tree so unique and able to grow in South Florida, it has the lowest amount of chill hours that a fruit or a peach tree needs to produce fruit. And chill hours is nothing more than the amount of hours at a certain temperature that a fruit tree or flower needs to send a signal to the reproductive side of it to say something needs to happen. And that something that needs to happen is usually I'm going to produce a flower or I'm going to produce some fruit.
Okay. That actually leads me to my next question in regards to different temperatures for plants. So some of these are seasons at a certain time of year best to plant some of these plants. So what would you say, for example, the guava and strawberry tree, what would be the best time to plant a plant like that?
A lot of times, because these trees are mostly tropical, any time where you're out of the frost season, so I would say December to January, surely don't go into planting them. But any time outside of that, it should be pretty good. You may miss the fruiting season for that particular year, but you'll be able to catch it next year. Yeah. And I'm glad to see we have a special guest that's joining us today. Councilwoman Linda Julian has come to join us today in the garden.
Hi.
She has been an avid fan of the garden. She's also helped provide some of the fruit trees in the garden. And we haven't gotten to that yet, but since she's here now, in case she has to leave. So she's going to be the lead person for the garden. We know that people have asked us, well, how do you get in the garden and how do you get to pick the fruit? Well, through Councilwoman Linda Julian's office, a citizen or anyone will call her office and they will set up a time and make the arrangements where you can come and do a tour of the garden. Okay? And before we leave, she'll give you her number.
Yes.
And on how to reach out to her. We also tour the gardens on some weekends. So for those people that work during the week, we want to make that available to them because we want to open this in all of our citizens and residents. We want to make sure that they have access to one of the jewels that most cities. Do you know that we're the only municipality that we know of as of this day in the country that has a garden consistent with just fruit trees?
Really?
Imported from around the world. Yes.
That is awesome.
Yes.
Go Miami Gardens.
Yes, Miami Gardens.
Yes. So listen, I am so happy to continue the legacy of Councilman David Williams. He has really poured a lot into this garden. He's really poured a lot into the medicinal benefits of what some of these trees and plants have to offer, right? And so, we know that African Americans tend to have ailments, right, that supersede, other cultures. And so I'm happy to take on this initiative and continue his legacy, because it is extremely important and it's creating impact in our community. So I definitely have some big shoes to fill, but I am I'm ready for the task.
And you know, the beauty of her being here since day one, she said, I want to continue that garden. You know, I see what's happening in my city. I understand what these food deserts are. She understands what exposure, you know, how do you know what noni is if you've never seen it? How do you know what fig is if you've never seen it, if you've never tasted it? So it's all about that. And as we walk over here, as we're talking now, we're going to talk about this fig tree. So this is another tree. A lot of our people of color, or anyone that's a diabetic, or they have potassium issues and they're on diuretics, the first thing we say, give them some orange juice to get your potassium up, or give them a banana to get your potassium up. Well, guess what? If you have some kind of gastric problems and you can't drink orange juice, or you have an acid reflux and it bothers you, we offer all kinds of options and other opportunities. And a fig is a great opportunity. It has more potassium than an orange or banana. And you can see down there, fig. So rather than going into Publix, we want you to shop in Publix in those stores, but rather than going in there and buying 3 figs for $6, you can come to the garden and sample the figs that we have here.
Awesome.
Yep.
And I do want to ask you a question. So for individuals that are looking to start their own garden or grow their own figs in their backyard, is there a way they can receive more information from you?
Absolutely. One of several things that we're going to be doing in the garden as we get this kicked off is we're going to have cooking classes, so we can have people come out here and cook, show them how to use the plants. And as I talk about cooking, one of the best things to barbecue or grill with is fig leaves.
Really?
Yes, you can put it over the charcoal, okay, and get that flavor. Or there's a dish that you can wrap ground beef in fig leaves and grill it and bake it and put it in tomato sauce. So they'll be exposed to different types of things that they can do.
And I can actually smell it while you're holding it.
Yes, yes.
Can I hold it?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you, oh, that smells really
Yeah.
good. What would you say is the flavor from the fig a little bit, if you can explain that?
Well, it just depends on, there's a flavor from the fruit itself, and you really have to sample it to really understand it, because there's no comparison. And that's the big thing about the fruit in this garden. You can't say it tastes like this or it tastes like that. All the fruits in here has their own unique taste. Okay, we'll teach lessons, not only cooking lessons, but we'll be teaching lessons on how to plant trees, how to mix up a good formula. And if you don't have yard space, we're going to talk about container gardening, what's the importance of buying potting soil versus in-ground soil, and what are the nutrients that's needed. And you know, another beauty about putting a plant in a pot like a fruit bearing, if you have bad weather, if you have a hurricane, you can control it, because you bring it out of the element and bring it inside. It's not going to be in there for a long period of time. It's just going to be in there for a short period of time, and you bring it back out in its own environment. That's the beauty of some container gardens. And there's a tree that we're going to talk about at some time called the miracle fruit tree. Okay, and one of the unique things about the miracle fruit tree is that it's really all over the place. It doesn't like the ground, it doesn't like a pot. It doesn't like the sun, and it doesn't like the shade. But where it does its best and where it produces is in a pot in the shade. Okay? So that's the miracle fruit. We also have more peach trees. I'm sorry to put my back. We're going to swing around this side here. And we also have growing, believe it or not, we have Arabica coffee beans.
Yes, so we can come here and get some coffee.
So this is a coffee. This is another coffee one. So what happens is, we just had a season come through, but the green pods grow along the stems, and you pick the green pods, and sometimes they're red. You pick them and you dry them out, and then they turn black. And once they've turned black, you put them in that coffee grinder and grind up, and you get fresh coffee. As we move along, this is another famous tree called the Barbados cherry tree. It blooms year-round. Another tree that has 10 times more vitamin C than an orange, the Barbados cherry, one little cherry. Also, one of our hybrid trees, hybrid, this is the jackfruit. I mean, the benefits of jackfruit is just off the chain. I mean, almost. And if you see the jackfruit is the largest fruit in the world. Some of these jackfruit gets big as a car tire.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And all the parts of a jackfruit are edible. You can eat the flesh. It's high on the vegans list of foods to eat.
Yes,
And if you eat it green, you can actually grill it and barbecue. And from what I understand, it tastes like the best pulled pork you would ever eat.
Yes.
The jackfruit. I particularly like it sweet. But another thing that I like is inside the jackfruit, there are these seeds. And you can literally here. And I like boiled peanuts. But you can boil these seeds, put all your seasoning in the water, and you're talking about some good eating. It's just unbelievable. And if you're a great hummus person, once you boil them and they soften up, you got them all flavored, you grind them up, you can make hummus, put it on some crackers or some bread, and you get a lot of nutrition out of this, the jackfruit. Just multiple positions and flavors and needs from this one jackfruit. The largest fruit in the world, the jackfruit, and it actually grows on a tree. And these are like babies here, because they can get 10 times that size, some of them.
Yes.
And we have 5 different varieties of jackfruit on the property. Also over here, this is another interesting fruit, and it blooms year-round. And I'm going to come to the far side of this tree and see if we can find some fruit bloom. This is what's called a strawberry tree. And this is the little bud, hard. It's green now. And it gets to be about the size of a blueberry, but it would turn red. And once it turns red and you eat it, if you close your eyes, you would think you were eating a strawberry.
Really?
That's why it's called a strawberry tree. Yeah. And it's just an abundant amount of that. You have to get out here early sometimes because the birds know that they're here. And the birds come out here and also eat them. And another thing about the tree is that it produces, before it's pollinated, that pretty white flower. So you can actually see how it starts. It goes from this stage, it goes to this green stage here. And after the green stage, it turns red, gets about 3 times that size, is ready to pick. Another unusual tree that we have here is called the Botanical. If you see all the trees in the garden that we've seen so far, most of the trees, the fruit grows on the leaves, on the stems, that kind of thing. The Jaboticaba is a fruit that has one of the highest sugar contents of any fruit. So the fruit does not come here. The fruit actually grows along the bark, looking down the bark on the Jaboticaba tree. And one of the things, let's see if we have any, we just had a season come through. But we're going to do a contrast and comparison for groves. One of the things you don't want to do, and we keep it there for a reason, is plant one tree that's blooming and flowering up under another tree, because it will take away from it. Okay, it will stun its growth. And a true example of this tree is a Jaboticaba. If you look here, this tree and that tree are also Jaboticabas. They were all planted at the same time. But this tree was planted up under a tree. That tree was out in the open getting full sun. So you see the big difference?
It took away some of the sun exposure.
Yep. It hasn't grown much bigger than when we planted. And you can see how small the trees were. This was even smaller than that when we the tree. We also have a family of hummingbirds. We have a family of finches that come down every year. We have a family of cardinals that come down every year. We use no chemicals. We use all natural means, like we use birds to get rid of the pests. We bring in beetles to get rid of the aphids. All of those things. Do everything natural. Also, another tree here that not only can you eat the fruit, but you can also make tea out of the leaves. And this is called the sweet salt.
And it's just like soursop too.
Okay? And you can tell when it's ripe and ready to pick, because in between those curves, when you can see the yellow, that means it's ready. Great source of tea. People that have some kind of cervical illnesses and things drank a lot of this tea to kill off viruses and those types of things. But very, very nutritious. They're now starting to market this as a tea, the sweet sap juice that you can buy. But you can come to the garden and make your own juice. Okay?
And speaking of coming to the garden, we actually have a question by Miss Beverly, and she asked, how can she work?
As we said earlier, she calls Councilwoman Linda Julian's office. They will set up a time and a schedule when both parties are available, and she can come and we can take her on the tour. Okay? And not only are we going to do it for residents, we're going to do it for schools. We've already had some schools ask, as they start to plan their field trips for the year, can they do a field trip here? As you see, we have plenty of space that we can accommodate school children. And I think it's important for students to do things. You know, one of the problems I had with my daughter, being a scientist, trying to get her involved in science activities, we had to leave our community. But now with the City of Miami Gardens, we can do things right here in our own backyard. Yes, and there's distinct advantages to doing those types of things. We also, as we move around the corner, another tree, one of my favorites, very fragrant. I thought I saw some buds on this side, but if you stand here for a moment, if you sniff deeply, you might be able to smell. But this is called the passion fruit vine. Yes. It's almost unreal. So we teach the difference between a tree and a bush and a vine. This is a vine, and it runs. And this will produce a passion fruit. Vitamin C, calcium is just unbelievable. They use it in drinks, they use it in juices. I mean, it's good to cook with as an unusual flavor. You know, instead of using rum in your cake, you can use passion fruit juice in your cake.
Right.
You know, those types of things. But if you smell this, smell the fragrance there.
Oh, wow. It smells, it has like a, I can't even explain it, but
Right.
It smells so good.
Yep, that's the passion fruit.
It smells the way it looks, I can tell you that.
Yep. And it looks almost artificial, almost unreal. I mean, just look at those colors. And if you were doing a science lesson, or a kid really wanted to understand what pollination and how those things occur, you touch these things, and you see, that's pollen. That's what bees collect.
Mm-hmm.
Some people eat that. So this pollen touches that pollen and touches another one, and that's how it pollinates. Without this pollen, we wouldn't have any fruit. So insects, and bees, and butterflies, they help us pollinate those things.
Okay.
And that's why a lot of plants, their buds are fragrant, because it attracts bees. And you can see more growing. And that was the fruit. I was looking to see, did we have any fruit? A lot of times we don't catch it. There's a passion fruit butterfly that eats a lot of the buds when they come out, and we don't spray them. If we see them, we'll catch them. but we just let nature take its course. And normally this thing would just be packed with these flowers, but we want the caterpillars and the butterflies to do their thing also, because their job is not only to pollinate this, but it pollinates the mango trees, pollinates the orange, the avocado, the papaya, all those things out here. So we want to work in unison, with insects and environment to make everything healthy for us. We brought in a lychee tree, special lychee tree. Lychee, before we grown up in price. We had a really nice year for lychee this year. And we also have some nursery rhyme trees. And a lot of people have never tasted it. So this is a mulberry. So this is an ever-blooming mulberry tree. There's several types of mulberries. Ever-blooming just depicts that it blooms 5 or 6 times a year, where the regular traditional mulberry has a season. It blooms once a year. But nature, in its way of balancing things, on the regular mulberry tree, you're going to get maybe 1.5 inch to 2.5 inch mulberry. And that's once a year. On the ever-blooming mulberry, they're smaller. I mean, they get a little bigger than that, but they get about as big as your big thumbnail. Okay, so they start out red, like this, or pinkish, and when they turn purple, I don't see any purple ones, because when the birds come early in the morning, they pick the purple ones. Super sweet. But all these are ever-blooming mulberry trees. Here is a great example. Purple. You think, and the exotic flavor. The other thing about mulberries is they make dye and ink out of it, because it's a staining. This purple stain, if it gets on certain things, it's just really, really hard to get out. So most of these things have most of the trees have multiple utilizations, not only from a healthy, nutritious standpoint, but also from a household standpoint that you can utilize in other ways. And I'm going to take you to some more famous trees over here that we have. And we have several varieties. We missed one of the trees on this side, out of Brazil. One of the rare trees. It's called a patumba tree. And it looks like a peach and a plum. Flavor. But this is called a patumba. I don't see any birds on it. We just had a season that we just passed through. Just exotic. And another one of those trees that the fruit flavor is just hard to explain. You just got to experience. But it's more of a tropical, Caribbean, island type taste to that fruit.
You say it's more on the sweet side?
It's very sweet. Yeah. All the fruit that we have in the garden is we have no fruit that's not sweet.
And for anyone that may have type 2 diabetes, is there any fruit that they should lean more towards?
Well, if you eat diabetic fruit, and if they listen, if you Google the top 20 fruits that's good and safe for diabetics, in this garden. Jackfruit, peaches, we have the apples, we have those types of things in this garden. Carambola starfruit is another great one. It has a glycemic control, which is the ability to control your blood sugar level. So even though it's sweet, so a lot of this fruit also helps with weight reduction. You don't eat as much, it's not absorbed, as readily. So all of those things. And we're going to go over to some other famous trees out of Indonesia. We talked about the starfruit, which is another name for carambola. And it gets its name because if you slice it and look at it from the side, it looks just like a star. It has 5 points. So if you were a classroom teacher and you were trying to teach a lesson in counting, or if you were a geometry teacher and you were trying to teach a lesson in geometric designs, what is a parallelogram, what is a triangle, fruit, star fruit, and all of these things, you can use as a hands-on example of those things. So we're going to go over around the side here. This is one of 2 apple trees. This one here is called a wax jambu. It's sweet, but not super sweet. It's great. It looks almost like a pear. It's really, really crunchy, and it comes red. Some of them are white. But to put it in a salad, some people like crunch in their salad. You put this in your salad, it's just unbelievable. And the nutritional benefits you get from utilizing the 2 together. It's wax jambu, and it is also on the list of diabetic top 20 fruit.
I'm actually looking at some of the leaves on the plant, and I'm noticing like different, some of them may have either fungus or something like that. Could you show us an example of a delayed growth fungus and what that looked like and what to do when you find fungus?
Okay. Maybe we can look at some over on the side of the carambola. Usually you're going to have fungus in a tree where moisture settles, okay, and it doesn't get sunlight, that type of thing. It's usually black, which occurs. This is another one of the timber trees that we have. This is on the rare fruit tree list. And if you hear those sounds, if you see these insects here, those are dragonflies. Dragonflies play a very, very important role. First of all, the dragonfly is not going to come around a place where it's not biologically safe. Okay? So if you're ever on a pond and you see dragonflies dipping in the water, you know that water is safe to drink. But the most important role that the dragonflies play is they eat mosquitoes. So if you cut open a dragonfly's stomach, you may see hundreds of mosquitoes in there. So that's just another natural means. Had we use insecticides and sprays, you would never see them hovering around.
Councilman,
yes.
Can I ask you a question? Because I
yes.
just came across something very interesting.
Okay.
So this is a jackfruit tree,
yes.
correct? And so what is this? What is happening here?
Okay. What you see there is the jackfruit ripen on the tree. And as it ripened, the birds came and they ate it.
Okay.
So it didn't completely fall down. So you're just seeing the remnants of it.
Okay.
Okay, and you can see some of the pieces on the ground over there and some of the seeds. But usually when you cut them down, you don't see that. It's just a clean cut, but that's what happened right there.
Okay.
And every one of them will look like that if you don't cut them when they're right. They'll just rot them, that type of thing.
Okay.
You know. Again, you'll see some unusual things. You're going to see different groups of butterflies. We've identified 5 different butterflies. You see the butterfly. These trees are from Indian Asia. These are starfruit that I talked about, the starfruit tree. Here it is. This is one of my favorite ones here. Okay, it's called a Fontaine carambola.
Where's it from?
It's from Asia.
Okay.
This particular one never gets yellow. This particular one gets white. And this is and this is one of the sweetest ones you ever want to eat. You can eat it this way. When you can tell when they are really, really ripe when there's no green around the tips. But you can just eat this just like an apple. Super sweet.
And what would you say is happening here on the tree? Or not on the tree, but on the
Well, what has happened here, you can see that a bird was picking on that end.
Okay.
You can also see where a lot of times, if you look here, when the wind blows, it rubs the fruit, and it puts that dark stain there. And when animals see that, they target those dark stains to try to pick in the fruit. So this is the white one here, and this is the traditional yellow color. So you can see the difference.
Yes.
Two different fruits, two different, they're both star fruit, but they're from two different countries, okay? And this one right here is super, super ready, okay? It hadn't fallen on the ground. And what people don't understand also is that the uglier the fruit, the sweet it is, okay?
And then the same darker the berry, sweeter the juice.
Yep,
Same.
yep. And let them fall. To garden. You don't pick them, but you can see it's prolific here when they're blooming. You know, and we really like to schedule trips to the garden when things are blooming. You know, there's no worse thing to do when you come to the garden and there's nothing blooming to pick or eat. So we sort of had something different. But if you see, and they're different sizes. This tree here, I call my little kitty tree. This is another variety of star fruit, but it doesn't get very big. It stays sort of small. And you can see different stages of star fruit. You can see some that's super yellow already. You can see some that's super green. So we can, by doing that, we kind of prolong the span of when the tree is going to get fruit. It's not like lychee, in 2 or 3 weeks it's gone. This is different. And then I wanted to show you what a hybrid will look like. All these, this whole section here is nothing but star fruit from India, from Asia, those types. And we class fruit by certain things, by the way it looks, by how long the shape is. You see that cluster there of trees of star fruit right there? Those are all first quality. See how long they are? 3.5, 4 inches, 5 inches. That's a great cluster, you know. So that fruit would be a fruit that you would find like in a Whole Foods store. You pay more money for that, you know, those types of things. And as we step out,
before we step out away from the star fruit, what would you say are the health benefits of the fruit?
Star fruit, high in vitamin C. There's some anti-inflammatory properties in it. So if you're having inflammation, it's going to help. High in fiber. You know, if you need fiber in bulk, as you become a senior and as we become older, we need more fiber in our diet to make sure our digestive tract is moving. Excellent source. They found so many uses now. Down at Snebly's Wine Farm, you're a winemaker. They make starfruit wine now that you can buy, you know, those type things. Starfruit juice. You can also use this as an enzyme to marinate meat. So there all kind of stuff. You can take the juice and drink it, or you can make strawberry popsicles. You can use it as a flavoring, like a cake. Rather than using vanilla flavor, you use starfruit juice, okay, and put it over there. So, also calcium, magnesium, potassium. I mean, if you don't have magnesium and potassium in your blood, you're gonna die. So this helps replenish it. So if you can't get it through food and meat, there are other sources. And a lot of people don't understand that. You know, if you are lactose intolerant, you can't drink milk. Well, you got to get calcium and stuff from someplace else. Well, there are fruits that we have out here that you can get it from.
Okay.
It serves the same purpose. And our last tree here that we'll talk about this in is our apple tree. So this is a green apple. Doesn't get super, super big. It gets about the size of a baseball. And in terms of the flavor, its flavor, so flavorful, it's just unbelievable. And I'll show you how it starts out. And it's amazing how it starts out as these little flowers. Then that's the starting of an apple, that little green bulb.
And it's so small.
And right, so small. And before you know it, it's going to be big as my fist. Yeah. And just crisp, nice apples that are growing here in this garden. But all three of these trees here are apple trees. It's a green apple. Similar to the wax jambu, but just a little harder, a little heavier than the wax jambu. You know. And we have a few other different varieties. You can get a closer look up here. Some of these picturesque pictures, it was a sunny day, but all those are starfruit growing. And I mean, I looked in the store the other day, and some of the starfruits are going for like $3.99 a pound.
Yeah, they're pretty expensive.
Yep, pretty expensive. But when we do our tours, people get a chance to sample. And that's a good opportunity to see whether you like something or not, and whether it's beneficial to you or not. We're also going to be labeling the trees coming soon. We're going to have the nutritional value on the trees. So if you're looking if your doctor say, well, I'm going to put you on a potassium pill because you're on a diuretic, that's to release volume because you have high blood pressure, and you're losing too much potassium. So I'm going to give you a pill for you to intake more potassium. All you do is come to the garden and look for a tree that has potassium. And that's the fruit you eat to help supplement the lack of potassium.
And that's a more holistic way of getting your potassium.
Exactly. If you're looking for B12 and B6 and all those antiviral type things, carambola, vitamin C is great. So you can get it from carambola, And there's really no aftertaste from carambola. There's no acid reflux. The acid content is very, very low in that. So it's really a good source. Looking out here to see if we really had any apples yet, but they usually come a little later. But you can see the tremendous amount of buds that's blooming all along here. It's going to be apples. And you see how massive this tree is.
Yes, it's huge.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you for your own garden back at home. You did build the beds yourself and build the compost. As far as the compost and what's under it, do you start your garden beds? Is it any type of what would you call that? The tarp that you put under there? Is there any tarp under there, or do you just use the soils that's on the ground?
Are there any tarp here?
Yes. Okay.
One of the things we know about weeds and things coming from up under, if you put about 4 to 6 inches of soil, it's not going to be able to come through weeds, that type of thing. And the weeds that grow on the top, a lot of them are shaded out from the trees. You come in and till or pull all the weeds out, that type of thing. And if people have any questions about the garden, again, direct those questions to Councilman Linda Julian's office, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can and help people out on that.
Okay, awesome. Alrighty, so that concludes our tour of the David Williams Garden. Thank you so much for having us and giving us all of this information. And again, if there's anyone that wants any information about touring the garden or coming to pick any fruits, please reach out to Councilwoman Julian and she will set that up for you. And thank you again, David Wilson, former Councilman David Williams. And my name is Daphenie Joseph. Thank you for joining us and have a good afternoon.